Atlas Comics, later to be known as Marvel Comics, published only 5 jungle-themed titles ever during the Golden and Atomic Ages. Today we're going to look at them. In total, there were only 5 titles made, and a total of 49 individual issues published between 1953 and 57. We're going to take a look at every single one of them. Now, what's interesting is the jungle theme and female heroes in the jungle had been around in comics for almost 14 years before Atlas dived in. And that's surprising, mainly because Atlas was willing to jump in and try just about any genre title, anything to make a buck. But for some reason, the jungle theme is something they stayed away mostly until 1953. They debuted Lorna the Jungle Queen. And Lorna would get her own series running only 5 issues, starting with a cover date of July 1953, running till February 54. Here you can see the covers of them all. And these all have the nice Atlas logo in the top left corner, 10-cent cover price. These are all pre-code issues. And if we look at their rarity on the CGC census, because these aren't extremely valuable, there's not a ton of copies graded, but even then, look how rare it is. There are literally no high-grade copies in existence of any issue of this series. And first appearance of Lorna is in number 1. You can see that John Buscema did art for this series, as well as Carl Burgos. The title would change with number 6 to Lorna the Jungle Girl. Now, just before we jump to that new title, let's kind of look at the value of the number 1 on the GP analysis site. You can look at all the copies that have ever sold that are graded. You can see again, very few copies have ever sold, and in fact, no copies in any grade for a number of years now. But an 8.0, the highest graded copy, is quite valuable, and that one might break records in the future. So the title changes to Lorna the Jungle Girl and has a better run, and it runs actually from issue 6 and then continues way up. As I say, the numbering stayed. So we have 6 up until 26. And so this is the longest running of all the jungle titles, especially under this specific title. Again, looking at the covers, you can see the Atlas logo. Again, these are all pre-code issues until we get to number 12. March 1955 cover date. This would have actually come out at Christmas 54. So anything after this, of course, is code and has the big Comics Code stamp on the book, which means they'd be censored a little bit. So generally speaking, pre-code books are a little harder to find, are older, and are in more high demand. And another thing to note about this series in general is that we've got a bunch of people working on this title, including George Tuska, Werner Roth, Russ Heath, Jim Infantino. We've got Don Rico wrote the stories for all the issues, Scott Pike, Sid Shores, Joe Manley, Vince Coletta, Bob Brown, Al Hartley. So a lot of big-time 50s artists worked on this title. Looking at the CGC census, you can see again, not very many copies graded. Just a few copies luckily have popped up in higher grades on some of the issues, but definitely not all of them. Now, what did Atlas do next? Well, they had this title, right, which they've switched from Jungle Queen to Jungle Girl. So it seems to be popular because it runs for 21 issues over 3 years, and it survives the code. Just before the code kicks in, they debut a new title. It's called Jungle Tales. It will run for 7 issues. Cover date starting September 1954. The title will last for 1 year, 7 issues. And just showing you the covers here. Quite a theme to all the covers. There's 4 different images on every cover, showing a lot of action to intrigue buyers to want to pick up this series. You can see already starting with issue number 4 is a Comics Code Authority issue. And then if we go over and look at the CGC census, just to see the copies that have been graded, you can see it stars Cliff Mason, who has first appearance in number 1, but Jann of the Jungle also appears in this series, and Waku the Prince. We've got John Romita again, George Tuska, Joe Manley, Don Rico writing the stories for all the issues, so he's definitely Atlas's go-to guy for jungle stories. Lots of copies graded of number 1, a couple high-grade copies, but again, generally speaking, not a lot of copies graded overall. Only issues 1, 2, and 5 have any copies higher than the 9.0. And if we go over and look at the GP analysis for issue number 1, again, not many sales ever. And again, only one sale in 2025 is the most recent, a 5.0, selling for $155. So not a very high price tag. You can see a few copies 8.0 or higher have sold, and of course those are bringing the big money because those are extremely rare. So this title will run, as I said, for 7 issues. The very next month, they launch another title, Jungle Action number 1. It will run for 6 issues, starting with cover date October 1954. So in late 54, Atlas is at their peak with jungle titles with 3 titles. And let's take a little closer look at the Jungle Action covers. You can see there's another theme for these. 4 panels again, but really 3 and then a small one on the bottom. And this title starts with code issues with issue number 4. And looking at the CGC census for the issues, again, number 1, of course, has the most copies graded. Only the odd copy has been graded 9.0 or higher. Again, we've got Don Rico writing most of the stories, but not on number 1, at least not confirmed. We've got Al Hartley, John Forte, Paul Hodge, Joe Manley cover, John Romita, George Tuska, Al Hartley, Sid Shores, Vince Coletta. Again, a lot of the big Atlas artists working on this title. And going back to the GP analysis, we'll look at issue number 1, and you can see that prices have increased for sure. There was a crazy high sales price of an 8.5 in 2023 for over $2,000. That might still be reflected a little bit of the hot market during the end of COVID. But a 7.5 sold way, way, way cheaper a year later. And there's most recent sale, a 4.5 sold for only $230 in 2026. Now, what happens is this title only runs a little while, and then they change the title of, well, actually, this one is canceled, but Jungle Tales changes its title to its character, Jann of the Jungle, and that will run for 10 issues, starting with a cover date of November 55, running into 1957. So what that means is up until the Atlas implosion of late 1957, Lorna and Jann, the 2 female heroes, still have their titles running. Note that Jann of the Jungle, starting in 1955, means every issue of this series is a code-approved issue. And here we'll look at the covers of them. Note that the series starts with issue number 8, continuing from the old numbering. And you can see she's featured prominently in her black outfit on all the covers. And she's fighting a lot of men hunters. And then we'll look back at the CGC. And again, very few copies graded of any of the issues because there is no official number 1. So most people haven't even got the first issue, number 8, graded. And as I said, the numbering continues from Jungle Tales number 7. In this series, we've also got Cliff Mason White Hunter backup stories. Don Rico wrote a bunch of the stories, but not confirmed on all of them. J. Scott Pike, Sid Shores, Don Heck, Carl Burgos, Al Williamson, and even a Bill Everett cover on number 16 and 17. And then just looking at the GPA GP analysis for number 8, which is the first issue. Very few copies graded. No super high grades ever sold. A 7.0 is the highest at $114, but note that sale was way back in 2007. So this title and issue rarely comes up for sale. You can see there hasn't been a sale in any grade for an extremely long time. Also keep in mind that is because so few copies have ever been graded. There's 9 graded and only 5 of them have ever been up for sale. So that's intriguing right there. So we get to the end of 1957 and Atlas and Marvel's little run of jungle-themed titles comes to an end. And of course that is the end of the golden age. There will be jungle titles from Marvel coming out later in the 70s, but we're going to feature those in a different video. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you collect these and what you think of them.